The Jedi Order spent thousands of years believing the dark side could only claim someone from the outside, that it came for the weak, the corrupted, the fallen. They were wrong. The greatest Sith Lord the galaxy had ever seen was not born in darkness. He was made there, by war, by choice, by the Jedi themselves. This is the story of Revan, of the wars that broke him, of the darkness he chose, and of the question that haunts every single moment of his legend. Was he a villain, or the only one who saw what was coming? To understand what Knights of the Old Republic is about, you have to understand when it takes place. Not decades before the films, not centuries. 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. Anakin Skywalker isn't born for another 4 millennia. Yoda is a child. The Republic that Palpatine will one day corrupt, it doesn't even look the same yet. This is the deep past, a different galaxy entirely. The Jedi Order of this era is not the contemplative, pacifist order of the prequel films. These Jedi are generals. They lead armies. They charge into battle at the front of Republic fleets. Thousands of them exist across the galaxy, trained from childhood and deployed as weapons of war. The Republic they serve is equally different, vast, powerful, but perpetually fragile. It has survived multiple Sith wars already. It has never known a generation of true peace. And the Sith, by 4000 BBY, have already risen and fallen multiple times. The Great Hyperspace War, the Great Sith War. Each time the Republic and the Jedi thought they'd won. Each time the darkness came back. What was coming next would be different, because this time, the darkness didn't come from outside the Jedi Order, it came from within. It begins with the Mandalorians. By 3976 BBY, a Tong warrior, a chieftain of the oldest Mandalorian bloodline, had united the scattered Mandalorian clans under a single banner for the first time in a generation. His name in the Old Tongue simply meant Mandalore, Mandalore the Ultimate. He created something that had never existed before, the Neo-Crusaders, not the old clan-based Mandalorian warbands of previous centuries, but a professional, standardized military machine, mass-produced armor, a chain of command, a recruitment program that opened Mandalorian culture to any species willing to fight and bleed for it. And in 3976 BBY they came for the Republic. World after world fell. The Mandalorian advance was ruthless, coordinated, unstoppable. The Republic military, stretched thin across thousands of star systems, could not hold them. The Republic begged the Jedi for help, and the Jedi Council said, no, not from cowardice. The Council sensed something wrong about this war, a hidden hand, a dark side influence behind the Mandalorian aggression. They feared that the Jedi charging into this conflict were walking into a trap designed specifically to destroy them. They chose caution. Millions of people paid the price for that caution. But one Jedi refused to accept it. His name, before he took another, was simply Revan, a Jedi Knight of extraordinary gifts, a tactical mind that could see 17 moves ahead on any battlefield, a force sensitivity of rare depth, and a charisma that made people want to follow him even into the dark. Revan formed the Revanchists, a faction of Jedi who looked at the Republic burning and made a choice. The moral imperative was clear. These were their people. This was their war. Council or no council, they were going in. His best friend and closest companion was a Jedi named Alec, who would later take a different name entirely. On the battlefield, Revan was something the Republic hadn't seen before. He reorganized failing military units on the fly, exploited Mandalorian tactical patterns the commanders hadn't even recognized, and turned engagement after engagement that should have been defeats into victories. The Republic's fortunes changed. Not overnight, this war lasted 16 years. But they changed. But the war ended in a place that should never have been touched. Malachor V. Revan had lured the entire Mandalorian fleet here, drawn Mandalore himself to this dark, storm-lashed world for the final confrontation. Deep beneath the surface, hidden in ancient ruins, sat the Traya Academy, a secret Sith center of learning that Revan had discovered. The Mandalorians considered Malachor cursed, That was why Revan chose it. Revan killed Mandalore in single combat and took his mask. Without the mask, without the symbol of Mandalore, the clans fractured immediately. The Mandalorian War was over. But the cost of ending it was this. The Mass Shadow Generator, a weapon of unprecedented destructive power built by a Republic engineer named Bao-Dur, used Malachor V's own gravitational field against the fleet. Both fleets, Mandalorian ships and Republic ships alike, were pulled into the planet simultaneously. Thousands of soldiers, on both sides, died in seconds. The wound Malachor V left in the Force itself, the psychic shockwave of so many deaths at once, would echo for years, a scar in the galaxy's spiritual fabric that nothing could heal. The Jedi Council had been right to be afraid of this war, but they hadn't been right to stay out of it, had they? And here is where the history books stop making sense. Because Revan and Malak, the heroes who ended the Mandalorian Wars, who saved the Republic, did not come home, they disappeared, into the unknown regions. Into the dark. No one knew what Revan and Malak found in the unknown regions. For years, the Republic assumed they were dead, or lost, or simply finished with a war-torn galaxy. What they found was the true Sith Empire. Not the Sith that the Republic had fought before, the scattered warlords, the rogue Jedi who had fallen. This was something else entirely, an ancient empire that had been hiding in the unknown regions for centuries, biding its time, growing in secret, watching the Republic through agents and spies, waiting for the right moment to strike. At its head, the Sith Emperor Vitiate, a being so old, so powerful, so steeped in the dark side, that he had achieved something no Sith had ever managed: true immortality. He had done it by consuming the Force energy of every living thing on an entire world. A planet called Nathema. After Vitiate, nothing lived there. Nothing ever would again. Vitiate captured them. And then he reached into their minds and rewrote them, turning them into instruments of his will, agents sent back to known space to weaken the Republic from within, and locate an ancient weapon he needed: the Star Forge. Revan and Malak returned not as heroes, they returned as Darth Revan and Darth Malak, Dark Lords of the Sith, and with them, they brought a Sith army. The Star Forge. The reason Revan had searched the galaxy with such obsessive focus was this: an ancient superweapon built by a long-dead empire called the Rakata, a civilization so advanced it had conquered the galaxy thousands of years before the Republic existed. The Star Forge was their greatest creation, a space station that drew from stellar energy and the dark side of the Force simultaneously to manufacture warships, droids, and weapons at a rate no ordinary shipyard could match. Virtually unlimited production, powered by darkness itself. With the Star Forge, Revan built an empire overnight, and unlike the Mandalorians who broke things, Revan occupied what he conquered. He was methodical. He was building something. A galactic power forged through conquest that could, when complete, turn around and face the true Sith threat he knew was coming. That was his plan. Whether that justifies what he did next is a question the games leave for you to answer yourself. The Republic should have fallen immediately. By every military calculation, Revan's forces, backed by the limitless production of the Star Forge, should have overwhelmed the Republic within months. What stopped them was a 20-year-old Jedi Knight named Bastila Shan. Bastila possessed one of the rarest abilities in the Force: battle meditation, the power to project her consciousness across an entire battlefield, amplifying the coordination, morale, and fighting effectiveness of allied forces, while simultaneously spreading confusion and despair through the enemy. In fleet engagements fought across thousands of kilometers of space, battle meditation was not a trick, it was a strategic weapon. The difference between winning and losing entire engagements. But even with Bastila holding the line, the war was brutal. Malak, now commanding a significant portion of Revan's forces, had no interest in Revan's careful strategy of conquest. Malak wanted destruction. He bombarded Telos IV, a populated world, from orbit. Millions of civilians killed, not because Telos was a military target, but because Malak wanted to demonstrate what happened to systems that resisted. And then came the betrayal. A Republic strike team led by Bastila Shan boarded Revan's flagship. In the middle of the chaos, Darth Malak saw his opportunity. He ordered his own ships to fire. on Revan's ship. His plan: kill Revan, kill the Jedi strike team, claim the title of Dark Lord of the Sith for himself in one stroke. It almost worked. Revan was critically wounded. He would have died except for Bastila, who found him in the wreckage and, using the Force, held him together. In saving his life, she inadvertently created something that would define both of them: a Force bond, an involuntary, permanent connection between their Force signatures. She brought him to the Jedi Council, alive, the Dark Lord of the Sith, alive and helpless. What the Council did next saved the Republic, and it also raises questions about the Jedi that never fully resolve. They wiped Revan's memories completely, implanted a false identity, sent him back out into the galaxy as an amnesiac Republic soldier, guided by Bastila, who knew exactly who he was and said nothing. Their hope that his subconscious knowledge of the Starforge's location would resurface naturally, that Revan would unknowingly lead them to the weapon that was destroying the Republic. Meanwhile, Malak reigned, and where Revan had been methodical, Malak was simply brutal. He had at some earlier point lost his jaw, removed by Revan's lightsaber during a training exercise, or as punishment, the histories aren't certain, and replaced it with a prosthetic voice modulator. He spoke in a low, resonant snarl. He ruled by inspiring terror, and he needed Bastila neutralized. Her battle meditation was the only thing keeping the Republic alive. He got her. Bastila was captured and subjected to sustained psychological torture. Malak was extraordinarily skilled at finding the weaknesses in a person's spirit and exploiting them. He used her Force bond with Revan, her pride in her own abilities, her exhaustion, her fear, her loneliness. He broke her. Bastila Shan fell to the dark side, and with her fell the Republic's last strategic advantage. Her battle meditation, now turned against the forces she had spent years protecting, began tearing the Republic fleet apart. The war was almost over. The darkness had won. Almost. This is where the game begins. You wake up. You have no memories. You are a Republic soldier, you think. You are stranded on Terrace, a stratified city world under Sith occupation, with a companion named Cartho Nasi, who barely trusts you. And somewhere on this planet is Bastila Shan, whose battle meditation the Republic desperately needs. Terrace is one of the most striking opening environments in all of game design. A planet that is literally stratified by class, the wealthy at the top, the poor in the middle, the completely abandoned at the bottom, dying of a plague no one cares to cure. You escape Terrace just before Malak destroys it. The entire planet. Orbital bombardment, millions of civilians killed, because Malak needed to be sure you and Bastila didn't get away. That is who you are running from. You make it to Dantooine, a quiet pastoral world where the Jedi Enclave is hidden. Here, the Council retrains you as a Jedi. Here, you discover the first star map, an artifact left by the ancient Rakata that points toward the Starforge. There are 4 more, scattered across the galaxy, and so the quest begins. 4 worlds, 4 star maps, each world its own story, its own moral weight, its own impossible choices. Korriban, where you must infiltrate the Sith Academy itself. Manan, where political neutrality barely holds 2 empires apart. Kashyyyk, where Wookiees are enslaved and something ancient waits in the roots of the world. Tatooine, where the desert hides ruins older than the Republic. And then, on Malak's flagship, caught captured at what seems like the end, Malak tells you the truth. Did you honestly never suspect? The Jedi Council took your memories. They rebuilt you. But I know who you really are. I know what you are capable of. You are Revan. Everything clicks. The skills that felt too natural, the instincts that seemed too sharp, the way soldiers followed you without question, the way the Force moved for you. That wasn't who you were becoming. That was who you already were. The game's final choice is not a battle. It is a conversation. With Bastila Shan, fallen, dark, exhausted, the player must choose to fight her as an enemy or to reach through the Force bond and pull her back. The game argues, in this moment, that redemption is not a power. It is a choice. One person choosing to see another person, rather than their actions. Malak's final words. I cannot help what I have become. Where did we go wrong? We were the heroes once. The Star Forge is destroyed. The Jedi Civil War is over. Revan is hailed as the prodigal knight, a name that carries the weight of everything he was, and everything he chose to be instead. But the story doesn't end here, because Revan's memories came back. Not all of them, but enough. Enough to know that the true Sith Empire was still out there, still waiting, still growing. And so Revan did what the Jedi Council would never sanction, and what no one who loved him could understand. He left, alone, into the unknown regions, to face what was coming so that no one else would have to. He was never seen again in his own time. 5 years after the Battle of the Star Forge, the galaxy exhales, the Republic rebuilds, trade resumes. The immediate crisis is over, but the Jedi are dying. Not in battle, not from Sith blades. They are simply dying. Masters are disappearing. The few surviving members of the Order are afraid to gather, afraid to be found, afraid to admit what is happening. The Jedi Order, already nearly destroyed by the Jedi Civil War, is now in freefall. Something is hunting them. The second game begins with a different player character, Meetra Surik. Known in the game only as the Exile, she was a Jedi general who served under Revan during the Mandalorian Wars. She gave the order at Malachor 5. She activated the mass shadow generator, and when the psychic shockwave of so many deaths hit her through the Force, it was so overwhelming that she did something unprecedented. She severed her own Force connection to survive. The Jedi Council exiled her, not for fighting in the war, but for what she did to herself afterward. In severing her connection, she became something the Council had no framework for. A wound in the Force, a living absence, a person who exists as an echo rather than a presence. But this wound made her something unique. She unconsciously drew on the Force connections of those around her, feeding on them, yes, but also strengthening them. Those who traveled with her became stronger in the Force simply through proximity. She was less a Jedi and more a living argument about the nature of the Force itself, which is exactly why the woman who found her was so interested. Kreia. She will be the Exile's guide, mentor, and ultimately, her most dangerous enemy. And she is the most sophisticated character in the history of Star Wars. Before she became Darth Traya, she was a Jedi Master, one of the greatest the Order had ever produced, and the woman who first trained a young Jedi named Revan. She watched Revan choose his own path, fall to the dark side, and ultimately be redeemed by others rather than by himself. This fascinated and infuriated her in equal measure. After the Jedi Civil War, she sought answers, and found the Traya Academy on Malachor 5, embracing the dark side, becoming Darth Traya, training 2 apprentices, Nihilus and Sion, who then promptly betrayed her, cast her out, stripped her of her Force connection, mirroring, with dark irony, what had happened to the Exile. But here is what makes Kreia extraordinary. Her philosophy is not about power, it is not about domination. Kreia believes the Force is the problem. Not the dark side, not the Sith, the Force itself. She argues that the Force has a will, that it manipulates events, creates chosen ones, and directs the lives of Force sensitives not for their benefit, but to maintain its own eternal cycle. Light rises, dark falls, dark rises, light falls, forever. A loop with no escape and no purpose beyond its own continuation. The Jedi call this the will of the Force and treat it as sacred. The Sith seek to dominate it. Both, in Kreia's view, are slaves to it. Neither has ever questioned whether the Force itself should be broken free from. Her goal, to use the Exile's unique wound, a living void in the Force, to project that disconnection on a cosmic scale, to deafen the galaxy to the Force entirely, to give living beings true free will for the first time in history. Even if it kills her, she demonstrates this with a moment early in the game that has stayed with players for 20 years. The player gives a credit to a beggar. Kreia, watching, grabs the player's hand through the Force and crushes the beggar to the ground. You think you have helped him. You have not. You have made him weak, dependent. When you leave, what then? She is not wrong. She is also monstrous. The game never lets you forget either. But Kreia is not the only threat. She is not even the most terrifying. Darth Nihilus, He is what Malachor 5 left behind. A survivor of the mass shadow generator's activation, someone caught at the epicenter who was not killed but unmade. The catastrophe destroyed him and rebuilt him as something that should not exist. A living void, a hunger wearing armor. Nihilus cannot stop consuming. He has devoured individuals, fleets, and worlds. His most devastating act, the KOTOR massacre. When the last Jedi Council members gathered in secret on the Miraluka colony world, Nihilus arrived and drained the entire planet. Every living thing, all the Jedi Masters, an entire civilization, in a single act of hunger. He is not evil in the way Malak is evil. He is something more fundamental. He is the Force's opposite, not a conduit of life energy, but a drain on it. A black hole wearing a mask, Darth Sion. Where Nihilus is cosmic horror, Sion is personal tragedy. He was a Sith marauder who had been killed, and killed again, across decades of war. Each time death came, instead of accepting it, he reached into his hatred and refused. He used the dark side to hold his shattered body together by sheer will. The result, a cracked, decaying corpse in perpetual, catastrophic agony, held together by the only force keeping him from dissolving, his own hatred. He can be defeated in combat, repeatedly. He always gets up. He literally cannot die from physical damage. The only way to defeat Darth Sion is to talk to him, to convince him, in dialogue, to let go of the hatred holding him together, to accept death. He achieved immortality, the dream of every Sith, and found it to be an inescapable prison of pain. His final moment is one of the most quietly devastating scenes in any game, in any genre, and at the end, it comes back to Traya. At the core of Malachor 5, the wound at the center of both games, the Exile, confronts her. Traya's plan has failed, and in her defeat, she does something no great villain does. She gives you the answer you've been asking for all along. I have said many things, I have been many things, but I have never lied to you. You have deserved better than that. She dies having failed in her ultimate goal. And yet she has given the Exile everything, a philosophy, a purpose, a way of seeing the Force that no Jedi Master ever offered. She remains the most complex character in the history of Star Wars, not because she was right, but because she was never entirely wrong. Why does this era matter? Not just to Star Wars fans, to anyone who cares about storytelling. Because the KOTOR era did something the mainline films have rarely managed. It took the ideas that Star Wars only gestures toward, redemption, identity, the nature of evil, the cost of war, and actually interrogated them. Revan is not Vader because Vader's fall is a tragedy imposed on him by circumstance and manipulation. Revan's fall was a choice, made with open eyes and full knowledge, justified by a reasoning that was neither stupid nor wrong, only incomplete. Traya is not Palpatine because Palpatine wants power for its own sake. Traya wants the galaxy to be free from the very thing that makes her extraordinary. She hates the Force because she loves life more than she loves her own gifts. These games, made in 2003 and 2004, by studios that believed video games could carry literary weight, produced lore richer than anything that came before them in the Star Wars universe, and arguably, anything that has come since. The Old Republic never happened in a galaxy far, far away. It happened 4,000 years before the one we think we know, and it was the most Star Wars ever got. If this is your first time on learning lore, welcome. Subscribe. There's a lot more where this came from, and if you want to experience this story yourself, Knights of the Old Republic and its sequel, The Sith Lords, are available on PC, iPad, iPhone, Nintendo Switch, and most places games are sold. Play them. Seriously, play them. May the Force be with you. Unless, of course, Traya is watching.